بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين على آله وصحبه أجمعين. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a blessed praise. We send peace and blessings upon our beloved messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon his i'triyah, his family, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his companions, and those who follow them until the end of time. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. MashaAllah. It's great to be in the land of the notorious Fetty Wap, as well as what can only be described as dysfunctional professional sports teams, and perhaps the greatest television series ever known to man, New Jersey. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا New Jersey. Where's Old Jersey, by the way? But y'all know about me, huh? So it's great to be here, alhamdulillah. It's a blessing to be amongst you. I appreciate all the attention on social media. I had a number of parents call or contact me and complain about some of the memes that you made. I thought they were very and actually absolutely incredible. And barakallahu feekum, which means thanks. So, y'all okay? So, what we're going to talk about is the life or the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and some, I think, very important lessons that we should take from his life. The word seerah, it's translated as the biography of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but really the word seerah is from the word sayr, and sayr means to follow something. In the 6th chapter of the Quran, it says, "Qul siru fil ard." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, go and follow in the earth. Go and see those who came before you. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we study the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we are really commanded to follow his life, as though we're following his footsteps. And that's why in the Quran, the word for stories is qasas. The word qasas means to follow. Ala atharihima qasasa. Right? It says in the 18th chapter of the Quran, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he says, we're going to follow the athar, the footsteps of this qasasan, step by step, step by step. So a story also is called a qasas or qasas because you follow it like you live it. It's like virtual TV, right? And one of the great scholars, Al-Junayd, he used to say, Hikayatul Salihin, he used to say that, the stories of the righteous are jumin junudillah, are like soldiers from God, like they strengthen your heart. They remind you of certain things. You find some intersections between your life and the life of those people who came before you, and ultimately maybe you're able to extract certain lessons. Now with that in mind, I teach the seerah a little differently, because within the Western context, we see, as well as in Arab countries and other Muslim countries like Iran, Pakistan, Malaysia, we find that in Africa, the seerah has been taught really in one of three ways. Number one is what's called Tashih al-Seerah al-Nabawiyyah, right? Is where people have gone through the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they have said, this really happened, this didn't happen. And usually what happens is they use the methodology of the scholars of Hadith. This is extremely problematic for a number of reasons. The first is that the historians of old, their methodology of what they would consider authentic and acceptable for being reported was much more lax than the scholars of Hadith for a very, very simple reason. The goal of Hadith was very different than the goal of history. The goal of Hadith was to find, for example, a hukum, what's the ruling on this? How did the Prophet do this? How did this happen? Whereas the goal of history, as Ibn Ishaq, one of the great historians, he talks about, Al-Tabari, he talks about, the goal of history is just to kind of give you an idea of what happened, right? It may or may not be 100% accurate, but this is the general feeling of what happened. And for that reason, that's why you find now this top 40 seerah. I call it like a top 40 seerah. And what that is that the seerah now is being presented to you as one book. And that's, for me, it's extremely problematic. So Rahiq al-Makhtoum, it's a book in Arabic, it's translated into English, it's like one book. But if you it's giving you a lot more information. And that's extremely important as we talk about how we want to reflect on the seerah tonight. So that first methodology, and this became popularized with people like Sheikh Nasruddin Albani, like Al-Hamel, and other later scholars of Hadith. It's interesting to note that the great scholars of Hadith before them never considered themselves, never bothered themselves with doing Tasheeh Sirah Nabawiyyah. This is something that came during modern times. The second is that we see people who are offering their reflections on the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. So, Tariq Ramadan has a book out on the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ. There's a great Shia Imam from Iraq who, in Arabic, he wrote this book on, his personal reflections on the life of Muhammad ﷺ. Amr Khalid really kind of popularized this method when he came out with Ala Khutwat al-Nabi, his TV show on the footsteps of Muhammad ﷺ. And that's really cool. It's awesome, if you respect certain intellectuals and then you're able to see how they reflect on the life of Muhammad ﷺ. One of the best I've ever heard, I wish you would write it, is Dr. Sherman Jackson's reflections when you talk with him on the life of the Prophet ﷺ. It reminds me really of Dr. West's reflections on Christ, right? Sherman brings this incredible academic acumen coupled with concern for social justice issues, and then being a black American, all that put into really thinking about how the Prophet's life means something to him. And that's very important. The third way that people wrote the seerah was just to collect everything. And this is, for example, what I was alluding to earlier about the early scholars who collected as much information as they could about the Prophet ﷺ. So these are really three kind of common threads you see. The first is really trying to correct according to the qualifications of the scholars of Hadith. This would be like a book like Al-Hayq al-Makhtum. Second are books that are personal reflections of people on the life of Muhammad ﷺ. We gave the example of the book of Dr. Tariq Ramadan. And then the third, which is translated in English, is super expensive, so if you're in college, it's not going to happen, which is about 24 volumes of Tabarani on the history of Muhammad ﷺ, or the one that was put together by Imam Ibn Kathir. I think there needs to be another way of really thinking or writing about the seerah, especially in contemporary America for American Muslims. And this is really based in my own background. As he said, I didn't study education at Azhar University. I studied education in Oklahoma. I know my man was nervous. He was shaking up here. I'm a nice guy. Don't worry. If you get it wrong, I ain't mad at you. Right? Yeah. No, it's not on my website. So now if you want to fight with me, I get nasty. Right? No, I'm not going to get nasty, man. You good. So, just joking. So, I have a sense of humor, so be ready. But I won't call you out. So, we have this education background where I learned really how to teach, and I appreciated having great professors. And one of the things that we learned is how you make a classroom become the teacher. Right? How the classroom begins to share with you after acquiring really some of the fundamental pieces of knowledge. Then the classroom begins to become the teacher becomes the classroom. That's why in Boston, when I was imam there, and maybe why I didn't last very long, because towards the end, I started to push the leadership of the community to accept what was called a learning mosque, a learning imam, where there is this reciprocal process of education. It's not just one person telling a bunch of people how they should feel. It's a bunch of people sharing their meanings of life and then developing kind of a strategic vision for a given community. That means that you have to work as a student, and that means that the person who teaches you has to work as well and be vulnerable. And most of us don't like to be vulnerable. So what I put together was what I call reflective seerah. And that is where the seerah is learned through a series of conversations about the event or events that took place in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And in the community, a given community, right? Because Imam As-Suyuti said, every community has to have its own mufti, right? Every community has its own experiences. What happens at Rutgers is not like what happens at NYU, right? This is very different than Manhattan, very different than Georgetown, where I'm at in DC. Wherever you are, there's subtleties that have to be taken into account, and you as a community are best aware of how to address these subtleties. So what we started to do across the country is teach something called reflective seerah, where we mention some of the famous incidents that happened in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, go over them historically, and then we have this conversation that leads to a strategy and procedures at an institutional as well as individual level. And what I like about that is, I was a convert in this country. I converted, I was pledging Alpha Phi Alpha. You probably don't know what that is. 1906, about to cross the burning sand. I could actually stomp, mashallah. And you can't laugh, bro. And go sit over there, man. I'm gonna get you. No, I'm just joking. You're fine. I like that soup game. The soup game is on point. Why y'all laughing at it? I'm gonna get you too. No, I'm just kidding. So I converted, and I remember, you know, when you're a convert to Islam, you have this tremendous zeal. You're hyped, you know what I mean? Like making wudus, like, you know, like, you know, it's like getting married. Making wudu is just incredible. It's like water's running. And a miswak is like getting like a golden ring. And you're just excited. Nothing could go wrong. Then I went to my first khutbah. So my first Jummah is very interesting because I went with a brother and I had just become Muslim. I was a little wild. And we went there and he's like, where are you going? I was like, where are the girls at? He's like, what? I said, yeah, man, the beautiful Eastern women, man, where are they at? He's like, no, man, you gotta go with me, right? It's a video I worked on, I called my first Jummah. It's bad, it's so funny. But then I sat down and I listened to the khutbah and I fell asleep. How on earth can you put a convert to sleep? Now that's a miracle. How can that happen? You know, like a week after conversion, you could come to me and I could sneeze, you could be like, Yarhamakallah, like, oh wow, what's that? Like, Yarhamakallah, oh my God, it's amazing, man. Like, how do you say that? Can you write that down, transliterate it for me? Like, oh, chicken tikka? Oh, it's a tikka. Everything is like a moment, right? Everything is a moment of excitement. So for someone to have knocked me out in the khutbah meant that it was acutely horrible. So then over the years, and this is how actually I got started speaking, you know, I had to listen to this respected person read verbatim from one of those old books in English that's written like, it was like a remix of Beowulf, that kind of English, and he just read it. That was the khutbah every Friday, man. I swear to God, next Friday he'd be like, so last week, we stopped on page 22, we're on page 23. It was just like, and the author said, and, like it was started with a conjunction. And I was like, man, this is a disaster. And then I started to realize that it really wasn't what he was saying, because like I was trying to listen to what he was talking about, and I was like, yeah, I have like a general interest. This is my religion, I'm a convert, I want to know, I don't want to be stupid white poster boy guy. So I want to learn something, but then he's not making it relatable to me. So oftentimes we may experience lectures, talks, you know. I met an Imam a few days ago, and I was talking to him about Ride Along 2. It's a long story how that conversation. So he didn't even know who Ice Cube is, man. I'm not laughing at him, but I'm saying like, how do you talk to people? He didn't know who Kevin Hart is. And I'm not saying that when we went to Azhar, you know, man huwa bi-tafsil Kevin Hart. I'm not saying that should be a question in our examination. But Imam al-Haddad, one of the great scholars, said that it's upon religious people that they are able to tie the heavens to the earth. Right? They're able to marry sociology with theology. They're able to marry, you know, religious culture with popular culture. They're able to utilize certain things around them, right, so that they can reflect those off things around us so that religion makes more sense to us. If we have people who are unable to tie our religious teachings into Black Lives Matter, right, into what's happening with Donald Trump and Islamophobia, what does that mean? See, I don't know what that means. See how I reacted? Does that mean something's good or something you snap? Yeah. Oh, like, oh, snap? Yeah, that's my generation. Now you actually do snap. Right? Well, that's kind of interesting. Imagine like all the aunties did at Islam. Start snapping. Crazy. Or uncles. But if we don't have people who can tie our theology into, for example, the disparity of wealth in this country, The fact that major cities are being bleached. They're not being gentrified, they're being bleached, right? Historic communities, without their permission, are being uprooted, forced to move into areas and live in places that they never wanted to. You have the elderly in Washington, D.C. who get lost. I mean, imagine if you lived in a neighborhood for 40 or 50 years, and then suddenly you live in a new neighborhood and you don't even know where the grocery store is anymore, right? Those are things that our religion has to be concerned with. And I believe that in America, the reason that we have a budget to hate each other so well, because no one is good at hating themselves like Muslims. We love to self-deprecate. We love to find reasons to hate each other, whether it's a nationalistic reason, whether it's Sunni Shia, whether it's, you name it, right? We're good at that. Whether it's who our Sheikh was, like he said, Sheikh Muhammad, Sheikh Sayyid, and قرأت على Sheikh Sayyid 7 سنين. Sheikh Sayyid Jibril, the brother of Muhammad Jibril in Banha. I used to read in their home. When he said that, I wasn't like, oh man, I do better on his brother, I'm better than him. I was like, mashallah, we had the same mashi, right? It's a type of food in Egypt. But we're great at hating each other. And the reason I think that we have the budget to hate each other is because we're not busy with America. And we don't think about our religion in terms of really bringing added value to the lives of people around us. And what makes that so evident is that we don't really find value in our own institutions. So you'll grow up as a community member. I experienced this with a tremendous amount of apathy towards existing institutions, not because you don't love your religion or you're not concerned about what's happening overseas or whatever. It's just there's not a connection. Stuff doesn't make sense. And I know as a convert, it was like even 10 times harder for me, because I didn't have the cultural kind of environmental, evolutionary religious experience as a child. I came from a family, when I memorized the Quran, my mom was like, what'd you do? I was like, I memorized the Quran. She was like, okay, hand me the remote. Like, she didn't know what that meant. So it became even more, I would say, challenging. And that's why I tell people, if I wasn't an imam, I don't think I would be in institutions as much as I am, simply because there's not much there for a white guy with an urban slant in America that makes sense. So what reflective seerah forces us to do now is to begin to think, and I think we should do this with tafsir, I think we should do it with hadith, I think we should do it with everything around us. It causes us to learn something. And then what, in Bloom's taxonomy, which is brilliant for teachers, he talked about the idea of synthesis, the idea of learning two things and marrying them together. The Malikis, we say that that's actually an obligation. To take two concepts and make them work is called a jam'. Sidi Abdullah said in his manzuma, وَجَمْعُ وَجِبٌ مَا أَمْكَنَ. You know, if you can make things work together, like you can take Medina and Rocket and Bed-Stuy, that's crazy. If you can take the Aus and the Khazraj and compare that to the Crips and the Bloods, that's what you're trying to do. If you can think about Waylul al-Mutaffifin and Tavis Smiley's book on poverty and make that work, that's going to work. If you can talk about how the Prophet ﷺ had Bilal stand on top of the Kaaba in front of all those buck booty wild racist Arabs and make adhan, and you can tie that into the message of a quote-unquote, a post-racial America, which is a farce. But you can tie that into us having to watch black children every week killed by people we pay to protect them, then your religion will make sense to people around you. But if all we're doing is telling people, we're not terrorists, like, I swear to God, like, you eat it halal, guys. Have you been poisoned? Like, you know, like, we're not terrorists. That is not really going to get the job done. And I would counter and say that groups like ISIS and others have been able to relate to America in the name of falsehood better than we have in the name of truth. And what they're relating to is fear, terror, and potential pain. Everybody can relate to that. So what we're going to do tonight, inshallah, is I'm just going to model it for you. I'm going to take you through a few examples of the seerah of the Prophet, peace be upon him. I might throw it out there and ask you to share, but because of time, and I have to ride back to Washington, D.C. tonight, get ready to jump in this car, it might not be possible. But I want to thank you for like the love. You guys are crazy. You guys are crazy. I have parents hitting me up like, it's not respectable, they make memes of you like that, like, you need to teach them adab. Adab is basically a word which means, I'm uncomfortable, please stop. That's really what adab means. But I was like, no, that was lit. And she was like, lit? What lit? I said, no, I mean, it's really nice, it's really good, it's all gravy. Gravy? No. So I appreciate it. Now, let's start. How does every book of Sirah start? I walk around ADHD, man, like Kendrick Lamar. How does every book of Sirah start? What's the first chapter? If you get it wrong, you're in big trouble. I'm just joking. You shouldn't be scared to get it wrong, man. Be vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. Huh?
It starts with Bismillah.
No, man, come on. It starts with Bismillah. I mean, that's a good answer. It's kind of right, maybe, depending on who wrote it. What's the first chapter? Always in Sirah. It's always this chapter.
The people before the Prophet.
Almost. The people before the Prophet Muhammad? Almost. You're so close, but you're so far away. Sorry. Huh? Abraham? No, man, before that.
Ismail.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for raising your hand. MashaAllah. You're obviously not from New Jersey. Yes, go ahead. No. That was good. I usually bring door prizes and stuff, man, but budget's kind of weak, you know. Brother from Oklahoma, my own city. Yes. Huh? Almost, man. You're so close, Ibrahim. It always starts with what, man? Come on, guys. Every single book. Is it like midterms or something? Is everybody okay? Ismail. So Ibrahim Ismail is like part of the answer. If we're playing hot and cold, you still be cold. You're not as cold as you were before. One more chance to save face. Yes, brother. Huh? MashaAllah, he saved you. Give it up for this brother. No, do that thing that corny millennial thing that you do. I love millennials. So, you guys okay? Sisters, you okay over there? I will push you in the corner. The lineage of the Prophet. His nasab. And it goes through all of the prophets before him. And what that causes us to do is to think about all those families that preceded the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I like to joke, there's always little things I'm doing to try to hit you, so you gotta pay attention. I'm gonna hit you soft though. And let's think about family. The first lesson. You think about all of those prophets who preceded him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, al-anbiya ikhwa, wa dinuhum wahid, says in the Hadith, right? All the prophets are brothers. But when you go to Muslim conferences, I'm divorced, okay? When you go to a Muslim conference and you hear about families, what usually are the expectations you hear about family? Like, what is the topic? It'll be like, how to have the absolute, acute, most perfect family. How to raise kids in paradise. How to have a marriage that never goes wrong. I gave a talk once with this guy, man. He wrote a bunch of books. And he was telling people like, you know, you and your wife, you should be like happy all the time. You know, it should just be like a big ball of glee up in that joint. Like there should never be any problems. You wake each other up every night to pray tahajjud. She'll drive with you to Fajr. And you're just gonna like give her everything you have. And I hate when people cater to the women. No offense. We emasculate our brothers at these conferences to get people to clap for us. Keep it real. There is patriarchy, I see that. There's patriarchy in the community. I'm with you. Don't get upset yet. But I'm just saying we should be able to create a balance without emasculating or being sexist. So he was saying that, and I spoke after him. I said, look, I like to give, but I like to receive. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give, you know, I'm gonna give a little. But I like to receive a lot. And he was like, no, brother, wallahi, I said, look, man, this is irrational. I've never met a family like this. But if we look at the Quran, we see a very different model of families than we find in conferences or in events. Because we think, you know what, I'm speaking about religion, so I just gotta make it as like utopic as possible. But what that utopia does is it pushes people away. I can relate to Imam Malik having a bad day, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq having a bad day, then I really can't have in those days of perfection. Because that's not me. So let's talk about it. What's the first family? And you see this also, by the way, people trying to get married. Like, really, what are you looking for? That don't exist. No, seriously, it's madness. Like, I'll have someone walk in my office and say, you know what, I have really low standards. And you start listening to the brother, you're like, man, when you find her, call me. She got a sister, right? You listen to the sister, and you're like, no, I ain't got no son. No, I do, right? Because her expectations are like, wow, like out there, right? And that's, I think, a reflection of really this utopic kind of push on what a family should look like, how things should go down. And then what happens is we get married and we realize that we're human. Humans are going to make mistakes. So let's look at family in the Quran, the family of the Prophet. Who's the first family member of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his lineage? Who's the first family member? Who? Adam. Oh, there's a normal family if I ever seen one. Can you imagine if you were Isna or Ikna or Mass or Suhaib Webb, wherever you are? And someone raising their hand and like, well, last night my son was barbecuing and his brother got jealous and he killed him. Sheikh, can you help me out with that? That's Adam's family. Adam's the prophet. Who's the second family of the prophet in the Quran? Noah. Oh, there's a normal family. Son, get on the boat. Nah, I'm good, Dad. Got this new Call of Duty joint. It's amazing. Metal Gear 4 Solid is out. I'm not getting on the boat. What did Allah say about his son? إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكِ. That ain't your son. That's not a normal family. Who's the third family? Sayyidina Yusuf. Yeah, there's a normal family. Boys. Why's your brother not here for supper? Mom made chicken karahi and samosas. Where's your brother? Nah, man, we was balling, you know what I mean? And this wolf, he was going up for the dump, and the wolf from Twilight jumped over the fence, ate him, and ran off. Then, later that night, Dad is on Craigslist, and there's his son in a well for sale. Get this young boy, $15, lowest price. $8 normal freaking family. Let's go to another family. Miriam, accused of zina. Let's go to the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know what the ulama say? They said if you look at every test and trial of the prophets in the Quran with their families, the Prophet faced sallallahu alaihi wasallam every one of those trials, either during his life or after his death, like when his two grandsons were killed. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So even after his death, his test continued with his family, even though he's gone. Right? His uncle is his greatest adversary to the point that it's recorded. So the point is, you think about how families look in our community, and you think about how families are supposed to look in our community, and then you think about the families of the prophets. It tells you that we may be a little bit off in our expectations. Now, how should that lead to policy at an institutional level? In Boston, what we started to do is, we started to accept the fact that Muslim families ain't perfect, nor they ask to be perfect. So what we started to do is, a young man, 2 weeks into my job, walks into my office, says he's being sexually abused by a family member. Some people in the mosque are like, oh, we can't tell nobody, we gotta hide it. You know, my mother's from the country, Oklahoma, she said, you hide stuff under the rug long enough, you're gonna trip over and break your nose. But that's what we do. I said, no, we should hide his situation. and hide him. But we better speak to this problem. So we started reaching out to clinicians in the community. By the time we left Boston, mashallah, we had 40 clinicians offering referral services to the Muslim and non-Muslim community of Boston, Massachusetts. We saved 43 marriages, man. So that's how the seerah should push us to think like, you know what? Families are vulnerable. And with the advent of the internet and the smartphone, families spend much more less time together than they did before. And that's problematic because they say the greatest key to having a healthy marriage is communication. But if everybody's looking at Angry Birds, they're going to be angry. And if our children are busy playing games or on whatever they're doing, right, and there's not a healthy sense of communication, you're going to see that the continued breakdown of the family is going to happen. So institutions have to react and not look to hide potential vulnerabilities, but to help them. I believe with young people in our community, for the first year, there should be someone who like mentors them through marriage, man. Not like follows them around and everything, but if you start to have some issues or problems, you got someone you can call. As a sister, if you got issues, and we know you can't go to family because that means it's going to be in the New York Post the next morning, right? That's just how it is. But there has to be now a reaction to the fact that the greatest human beings, families, were plagued with very serious challenges. And we're not prophets. The second thing that we learn from the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is about what? Someone mentioned it earlier. It's who? We did his family, his nasab, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his lineage. What's next? Who knows? It's the qualities of who? It's in every book of seerah. The qualities of who? Community ain't there yet. You don't have a community. Sorry. What'd you say? Can't hear you. Huh? His wife's? Oh, you're so close. But this is before it all starts. He's not even really, he hasn't started his prophethood yet. Always talks about these people. His character? No, he's talking about a group of people.
The woman that breastfed him?
Halima? No. Allah, you guys got a lot. You guys know a lot, alhamdulillah. Right? You didn't expect me to ask these kind of questions tonight, so I'm gonna put you on blast. My bad, but it feels good. The Arabs. Have you ever read that? When you're reading the seerah, you're like, man, I don't care about those Arabs. They were crazy. And then like they'll mention like the good qualities of the Arabs, right? Have you ever asked yourself, why do they ask you to think about the good qualities of shayateen? Why are they asking you to think about the good qualities of people that Allah said, fi dalalin mubin? Allah said, you were submerged in misguidance. He didn't just say they were astray. If you understand Arabic, fi is isti'ara bil ahruf, it's rhetoric. It means like they were sunk in misguidance. If I fall off the stage, you catch me. It's not going to happen. Fi dalalin mubin. But why would all of our scholars take the time to make us think what they call sifat al-mahmuda, right? The good qualities of these people. Some of them, they say these are the qualities by which Allah chose them. أختارهم الله سبحانه وتعالى لخدمة رسالته سبحانه. Why? And what does that mean for you here? When I teach seerah, reflective seerah, like this is what I say to the people. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to force, or if the writers, of the seerah were trying to force us to have the capacity to see good qualities in people who were really, really bad, then what are the good qualities of the Americans for Islam? That's how we should study the seerah. I asked this question once, and this little boy raised his hand, and he said, is that halal? Can I think good about them? I was like, whoa, man, come on, son. He said, I didn't know I could do that. I said, of course, if you're being asked to think about, is this the end or a break? What is a break? You have like an intermission or something? Intermission. You have an intermission? I went to ballet 2 nights ago. There's an intermission there. You're going to play a Santoor? You're going to play Santoor for us, bro? What about that Santoor? That's what's up. So, what are the good qualities of people around? What's the good quality of Fetty Wap? What's the good quality of Kanye? We all watch Catching Up with the Kardashians. You know how I know? I was in Carabasco, whatever that city they live in, and I went to that stupid salad restaurant. I didn't know they go to that salad restaurant every day, and I Snapchatted from there. And all of these sisters hit me up. You know where you was eating salad at? You thought I went to like some grave of a wali or something. They're like, you like to tabarak with like the salad bowl? What are you talking? I don't know where I am. I kind of didn't know where I was, but for real. That wasn't why I was there. Gotta do dawah. College dropout. So, point is, you should start to think in that way, that the writers of the Prophet's seerah are asking us to think about the good qualities of people around us who we might not see eye to eye with. I found that extremely empowering. Right? What are the good qualities of Donald Trump? For Deen. Yeah, that's like who Omar was. Wasn't Umar ibn Khattab the Donald Trump of Mecca? That to the point that one of the family of the Prophet who became Muslim said that Wallahi Himar Umar, his donkey will become Muslim before him. This is how they talked about him before Allah touched his heart. Can we have the capacity? I don't like Donald Trump, don't get it twisted. Or his $52 billion, or his spray tan. But the point is that I could see maybe one good quality he has. One. But the seerah is pushing us to think that way. So as a strategy, what does that mean in your institutions, in your community? You know, when you put on MSA events, do we put on MSA events that speak to us? Or do we put on MSA events that speak to the culture around us? When I was in Boston, I had this crazy idea. It was the last episode of Breaking Bad. So I was like, Breaking Bad is a metaphor for like breaking evil. So I did a khutbah called Breaking Bad. And we used the Breaking Bad, you know, the poster for it. Luckily we didn't get sued, alhamdulillah. But we used, you know, everything from Breaking Bad. Man, we had non-Muslims calling the masjid, asking us, what time is the Breaking Bad sermon? No, I'm serious. We had people walking in with shoes all day. Because they didn't know that you're not supposed to wear shoes. And they were like walking, there's this dude sitting in the masjid. He was like sitting in the middle of the masjid. But the point is, if we start to see good in people around us, then we're going to think about strategically how we can touch their lives. And to be honest with you, we ain't no different than them. We like the same things that they like. We basically do the same things that they do. We just keep it a little bit more different. But there's a lot of synergy between the two. And I believe if we did that, you would see institutions filled with young people. The last thing, I didn't know there was an intermission. Can't wait to see what this is about. Is working with other groups as an MSA. You know, oftentimes I will get text messages from people. They will ask me questions about, you know, can we work with this group? Can we work with that group on, for example, the issues of Palestine? Can we work on this group during the Iranian crisis a few years ago during the election issue? A lot of students who were actually from Iran were asking me, hey, what do you think about this? Can we work with this group? Can we do this? I don't know. The point I'm trying to say is, look at the seerah. In Medina, in the 5th year, the Prophet ﷺ, as related by Bukhari, is coming back to Mecca to perform Umrah. And on the way, his camel stops. Qaswa. And the Sahaba, and this is something else, man. This whole turning imams and sheikhs into like Gandalfian gurus, this is some weird stuff, man. And when you do that, you're going to give people an ego boost that they may never be able to recover from. And when you actually really try to give them constructive criticism, they're not going to listen to you because you blew up their ego. Doesn't mean also you go and like disrespect folks, but just keep it real. Let's be honest. Let's just be real. It's a great song. So, it's a good. I thought it was on the sheet. Myron saying about being honest. How's Jay? So, on the way back, Prophet's camel stops, and his companions, they're cool with him. They got it like that. So, like, oh, messenger of Allah. It's like camel's not working right. They joke with him. He didn't say to them like, you don't respect me, like you should respect ulama, you should respect like the pious, you should, see all that stuff. I was trained to make you be like that. But I had a good teacher who was like, you know, this whole creating this image is because you're hyper insecure. So you need people to wax your ego because you know you're very vulnerable. So I would rather be honestly vulnerable than hypocritically pious. It's much better. Imam Ahmed said, I would rather be with a sincere sinner than a fake saint. Point is, they were able to joke with him, and then he turned to them and he responded back. He was like, oh, okay, well, my camel wasn't created for this. Like he says, like she wasn't made to be like this. And then he said, those people in Mecca, and this is at the height of his enmity with the people of Mecca. He said, those people in Mecca, if they ask me to join them, to work, to do something good, I will work with them. One of the great scholars of Sirah, Ibn Qayyim, he said, this is an evidence that the Muslim community can work with any group in doing something good. One of the biggest challenges we have in America now is we have a massive problem. Listen, don't laugh at Islamophobia. I'm the victim. I've been hit hard by Islamophobes. Fox News did a story on me. Megyn Kelly called me cute. I was dope. I hit her up, asked her out. She was like, anyways. Interfaith dinner. I told her Usher's confession is 10 years old. She celebrate. She was like, I'm good. Man, you should be proud of me. I did that. Tolerance. Samaha. So, but I was, the night before I'm supposed to speak with Obama, the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call. Someone, I mean the passive tense is not cool in English, it's not like Arabic. You've been removed. It's like, who's the subject of that verb? We're not able to elaborate. But as we looked into the funding apparatus that caused that to happen, it was the Islamophobes. Ayan Hirsi Ali was going to be given a peace award at Brandeis University. And we stopped it from happening. And they went after me. And they went after me hard. And you guys got my back on Twitter like, we love you, and you know, OMG, and all those weird emojis, this new language that people be speaking. But we don't have enough strategic alliances with people in this country to fight Islamophobia. And that's because we're busy debating about who we're going to work with in our own Muslim community. Like our own Muslim community. I mean, honestly, right now, if you're worried about groups and divisions, and you have someone suggesting that our community should carry ID cards, and you still have the budget in your heart to argue about someone's beard, their aqidah, how they look, she's wearing hijab, what madhab do you follow, you have certified yourself as an idiot. Because someone's trying to harm you. Someone wants to destroy you. And you're throwing gas on that fire by dividing the community right now. So we learn from the Prophet ﷺ, even those evil people in Mecca, if they ask me to work with them, I'll work with them. So now as Muslims, we can't work with it. You know, like I said, we love to hate each other. We're good at it. That's a sign of hypocrisy. But the Prophet ﷺ teaches us to create strategic alliances. So on campus, if you're Egyptian, you're Black American. You're African American. You're from West Africa, you're African American. Don't just use that to get into school cheaper. No, I know. Because I did the 2% Indian thing in Oklahoma. I'm not Indian. I got the deal. You know what I'm saying? But perhaps join the Black Student Alliance. Join the African American student organizations. Get involved in Black Lives Matter. Because those people are going to come back to help you when you need them. Right? When you see any area where social justice needs to be spoken to, you have to understand that in the greater scheme of things in America, this is not a theocracy. They don't look at the things the way you and I see them. So in order to create our own defense system, we have to be offensive in creating strong strategic relationships. And that's something that we learn from the seerah. If you learn that, you don't have to call me, or Sheikh Yasser Qadi, or Na'man Ali Khan, or Ingrid Madison, or Yasmin Mujahid, or anyone else. One last point. He said, straight out of town, straight out of Compton. It's important, man. We gotta take some more time. This is important. Have things I want to share with you. I'm from the city of House of Cards. It gets real. And this is for really the community at large. When I became an MSA member in 1990, they actually asked me if I had a beard in my email. Like, that's how hardcore it was. And I remember I went to MSA and I was like I'm a new Muslim, I was trying to grow my beard out, you know what I'm saying? You're like a new Muslim, your new beard don't just grow overnight. You know, and I walk in there and they're like, well, brother, you got the new Muslim clause, but you know, don't touch that beard. I was like, so as a convert American, man, for someone to be telling me about my clothes or my beard, that's weird. Like, I was like, these dudes tell me about, I don't know you. You can tell me about my beard. I don't know who you are. We ain't broke bread. And as MSAs went on, oftentimes MSAs become the vessel by which the insecure launch their insecurities on the rest of the community. Usually women are the object of those insecurities. I'm gonna get you in a minute. Get ready, brothers. I want you to one brother was like, throwing up the blood sign. He's like, it's West Side, man. It's Pac. Point is, the Prophet Sirah teaches us that he's not walking around as some authoritative bully. He's someone who inspires people. He inspires people to be better, and people are allowed to be vulnerable. One of the biggest challenges for me, you know, being a convert, YouTube clips about this on my YouTube page, shameless plug time. But like, being a convert is really a terrifying experience. I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but like, I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know about Ramadan. I didn't know anything. First Jummah, I'm like, yo, where the girls at? I mean, I don't know. So it's very frightening, and one of the worst things that happened to me was really being torn up at my first MSA meeting when I walked in, because I was dressed like someone who's pledging Alpha. Yellow and gold with an Alpha shirt. And this brother, who doesn't even know me, maybe he thought I was Bosnian or Saudi or something, just like lays into me. And then he's like, what's your name? And I was like, my name's William. He was like, what kind of name is that? Are you Muslim? And he's going off on me. I'm like, dude, like, I just became Muslim like a week ago. He's like, well, okay, next week be better. Man, I was like, I'm not joining this. These people are crazy. Like, these people are crazy. But the Prophet ﷺ is incredibly merciful. And if we were more concerned about being merciful and inspiration than being a judge, jury, and an authority and an insecure brute, our communities would be much better off. And I'll give you examples. Because what happens is people always, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say we should throw out the religion? Because they're super insecure. Yeah, that's what I just said. Take the whole religion and throw it out the window. That's exactly what I said. You're 100% right. Drop the mic. I mean, really, brother, or really, sister? Like, go get a massage or something. Calm down. Whatever your gender, massage. So, Prophet ﷺ, someone comes into this community with issues in how they worship. We're going to be all right, bro. Relax. I'm vulnerable. Let me make mistakes. The person comes, he sees people in ruku, and the doorway he makes ruku, he walks like a batta to the salah. He walks like a duck. It's in Sahih Bukhari. After the salah, someone comes to the Prophet and they snitched on him. They said, this guy walked like a duck to the saf. And then the Prophet said, Aina hada? Like, where is that guy? And everybody's like, get it? And then he said, it's me, you know, hello, it's me. He came, and then the Prophet said to him, Jazakallahu khairan ala hirsak. May Allah reward you for your enthusiasm, but don't do that again. The point is, he doesn't destroy him. He doesn't break him off. He builds him. Another person, he became Muslim, you heard, when someone sneezes, say, Yarhamakallah, they're praying Asr. And many of you are like new Muslims in many ways. Right? It's not an insult. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said, every day I become a new Muslim. Every day I find something new about myself. Every day I uncover something I need to work on and refresh my relationship. That guy, he's praying, someone sneezes, it's his first prayer, he's a convert, he's amped, he's excited, someone sneezes, what do you think he yells? It's Asr in the masjid of the Prophet. The Prophet is the Imam, he yells, Yarhamakallah in Salah. And then the people look at him and he cusses them out in Arabic. Wallahi, I cannot say what he said in Arabic here, or there'll be a new article, 12 reasons why to avoid me. It's 11 right now. If I quote that, it'll be 12. But basically what he said is, your mothers should have miscarried all of you. But in Arabic, it's like, it's like fight wars in Arabic. But they're in Salah, so they're like getting heated. He's cussing them out. The Prophet is the Imam, and afterwards the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, where's that person? He comes up, this is new Muslim. He says, Ma shatamani, wa ma darabani, wa ma sabbani. He said, he didn't insult me, he didn't make me feel bad. He said, wa ma ra'itu nasa qat. He said, I never saw somebody nicer than him. He just corrected me. Issues of substance abuse. We have a problem in our community with substance abuse. No one wants to talk about it. Right? Tobacco use in our community. No one wants to talk about it. Right? Tuhfatain bina'na. I'm with you. It's tough to say no. I lived in Egypt. You breathe hookah living in Egypt. That's you breathe it. It's in the air. In Iran and Turkey, the same thing. I know in Iran where you can get the hookah. I know. I know what's up. Khush Ahmadi. Shub Bakhair. I know where I'm at. So, this man comes to the mosque in Sahih Bukhari, he's drunk. He's a Sahabi, he's drunk. That's what we forget. The Sahabi, when Allah says he's pleased with them, he's talking about their mistakes and their successes. So he comes into the mosque and he says, Ya Rasulullah. He says to Abu Bakr, where's the Prophet? I mean, who's going to ask for the Prophet? He's drunk. Everybody's like, what? Like, oh my God, he's lit. Lit. And then he goes to the Prophet. Because why? You trust him. And the Prophet helps him. The Prophet talks to him. He pastors him. So the last point I want to make, I didn't know we didn't have this much time, because I had like 5 more points. It's okay, I'm not upset, don't worry. I don't get hurt about this. I'm just happy to be with you guys. Is you got to let people be vulnerable in your institutions if they're going to grow. And you can't just cut their heads off when they make mistakes every time. Because, hello, it's not easy being human. And it's definitely not easy being in college. We have issues. We did a survey of college students in Boston. We asked them, what is your greatest issue? I remember the uncles were like, they're going to say like adultery and, smoking kush and like, this. Because Harvard and MIT has the greatest suicide rate amongst your demographics in America. It's not an accident. It's a lot of pressure academically there. What do you think the first response was? Loneliness. Being alone. If you're alone, you need people that will allow you to be vulnerable. So the last lesson that we take from the seerah, and we're going to stop, I swear to God, is that you have to let people grow in your community, man. Let them make mistakes, man. Teach them with mercy. Before you go and tell someone about themselves, do you even know their names? We had a sister who in Boston, she couldn't fast properly, so she would throw up before the time of iftar, and this lady thought she was making herself throw up. Like, I don't know who want to eat their own vomit. And then the lady brought her to my office and started going off on her in a language that she didn't understand. It was Habashi language, thank God. And then she left, and this girl told me, I'm anorexic, man. I'm scared to fast, because if I start fasting, I can't stop. That changes how we look at that situation. Completely transformed. Imagine the first time in my life I had to call Azhar. She's asking me, Hal yajuzu li an la asum? Is it allowed for me not to fast? Because I have a mental illness that if I stop eating, I won't start eating again. Right? So what I'm saying is, the last point of the seerah is, it really teaches us to be human and care for each other. Right? And have a sincere love for each other. Right? And then to be patient with people's mistakes and understanding of their context. For you and I to understand the context of a book, we got to read it. For you and I to understand the context of all these incredible young people in this room, we got to take time to read them and understand them. Then we can write a review on milk, which is like the Muslim milk. May Allah reward you, inshallah. It's been great being with you. I'm going to pass the mic to the brother who's a little nervous. His time is up. But we have to do. So like,